Cold air feels different when it rolls off headstones. It smells clean and used at the same time, like rainwater and soil that never dries. I breathe it in anyway. It keeps me awake. Every morning starts before the sun clears the low roofs of East Mill, the town no one visits unless they have to. We've got a dollar store, a tired diner, and a cemetery framed by chain link and pine. I keep it straight. That's my work. People think grave digging is all sorrow. They don't know the math, depth, angle, how clay sticks to the blade. They don't know the silence that presses on you, heavy as wet blankets. I wear the same brown jacket most days, cuffs held by duct tape. The ground is a kind of clock. You can tell the month by how hard it fights you. If you're still here with me, if plain truth is what you want, stick around. Subscribe, so you can walk with me through this work the world forgets. Even this far from town, company matters. Last night, Nora from the county said a plot had slumped near the woods after heavy rain. St. Elias Cemetery is where town fades to brush, the fence sagging where deer push through. I carry my kit, shovel, mattock, pry bar my father left before he moved west and never came back. The stone has a lamb carved on it, Kayla. 2 dates too close together. I brace the edges and dig slow. You don't rush a child's grave. The smell rises, rot cedar and damp earth. The shovel hits wood. The lid is split at the corner. I lift it gently. Inside, nothing. No body, no keepsakes. Just a hollow, the lining soft as pulp. The soil at the broken edge holds prints, small shoe treads, 4 or 5 steps up the slope toward the cedar. So I kneel there, counting them, listening to the woods. The prints vanish past the fence into shade. Some things you can explain, others you just carry. I stay where I am, watching the dark between the trees. By the time I stand, the air's colder. The morning light makes the prints sharper. Narrow, maybe a child size 4, the tread worn smooth at the heel. I snap a few pictures on my old flip phone. The camera's useless in low light, but it's all I've got. The sheriff's office is a 4-minute drive if you hit the lights right. I don't. This road doesn't get enough traffic to trigger them. I find Sheriff Lang at his desk, a cup of coffee steaming beside a pile of mail. He's got the same heavy eyes he had back in high school, the kind that make you feel like he's already heard enough bad news. Kayla Dorsey's grave, I tell him. It's empty. He squints at me like I've mispronounced something. Empty? Lid cracked. Prince leading into the cedar grove. Lang sets his coffee down without drinking. We'll send someone. You go back and keep folks out. But no one's coming out this far without being called. This end of town doesn't get drive-bys from the curious. You have to want to be here. When I get back, the sun's pushing through the pine tips. The frost on the grass is melting, leaving beads on my boots. The prints look even fresher now, like the walker just passed. The woods stand still, holding their own breath. I've dug for 23 years. I've seen collapsed coffins, shifted markers, a deer carcass where a grave should be. But I've never seen a missing body, especially not a child's. A pickup slows at the road, red with the Dorsey family farm tag swinging under the bumper. Michael Dorsey steps out. He's heavier than last time I saw him, face red from wind or whiskey. His wife, June, stays in the cab. What's going on? He asks, voice low but sharp. I can't lie. The coffin's open. She's not there. His jaw works like he's chewing gravel. June starts crying before he even turns to tell her. I stand there with nothing to offer, hands in my pockets, feeling the weight of the earth under my boots, and the space it's not holding anymore. Michael doesn't move toward the grave. He just stares at it like distance will keep it from being real. June stays in the truck, door cracked, her sobs drifting out like smoke from a chimney. I want Lang here, Michael says. His voice is steady, but his hands are knotted into fists. He's on his way, I tell him. Said to keep folks out. Michael doesn't look at me. He looks past me at the fence line at the cedar grove beyond. Those prints, he says. They go in? I nod. June calls his name. He doesn't answer. His boots crunch on the frost as he heads to the fence, but stops short of stepping over. I remember burying her, he says quietly, like he's talking to himself. The dress, the little blue ribbon. I don't know what a man's supposed to say when another man says that. The silence between us feels longer than the years since that funeral. The sound of tires on gravel draws my eyes. Sheriff Lang's cruiser, dust rising behind it. He gets out slow, looking first at the Dorseys, then at me, then at the open hole. He doesn't speak for a long time. "All right," he finally says. Nobody touches anything. He steps closer, crouches by the edge, shines a small flashlight into the coffin. No animals. No collapse. "Someone opened this," Michael spits into the grass. "Then go into those woods and bring her back." Lang's eyes flick to mine for a second, then back to Michael. "We'll check it out. But it's thick in there and cold. Prince won't last." I can tell he's already thinking about how this will read in his report, how much he can write without saying the thing out loud. The three of us stand there, the open ground between us and the cedar trees looking wider than it is. I keep my eyes on the prints, half expecting them to fade away while I'm watching. But they don't. They sit there, pressed into the dirt, as if the ground itself is holding its breath. Lang waves over Deputy Harris, who pulls up in an older cruiser with the passenger door that sticks. Harris is young, still has that shine in his eyes that makes him think small towns are safe by default. He takes one look at the grave and stops talking. Lang points to the fence. "Prince, go that way. You and me." He glances at me. "You staying?" "I've been here since sunrise," I say. "Might as well see it through." Michael's voice cuts in. "I'm coming too." Lang shakes his head. "No, stay with your wife." Michael doesn't argue, but the look he gives Lang says he'll be in those woods by nightfall if no one brings him answers. We step over the sagging chain link. The ground changes quick, from trimmed grass to pine needles, thick enough to muffle steps. The air smells sharp, almost metallic. The prince leads straight, weaving between trunks like the walker knew exactly where to go. 50 yards in, the frost is gone. The earth here is soft, darker. The prints deepen, edges crumbling. Some of them twist like the walker turned to look back. Lang squats to study one. "Small," he mutters. "Same size all the way. No drag, no stumble." It's quiet enough to hear the wind in the higher branches. Harris scans with his flashlight, even though the daylight's enough to see. He's jumpy now. The trail ends at a fallen cedar, roots clawing the air. The last print is at the base. Past that, nothing. Just needles and soil undisturbed. Lang stands there a long time, hands on his belt. Could have stepped up onto the log. Could have jumped. But no landing marks, Harris says. I walk around the other side. The ground's clean, no sign of a drop or trail. It's like whoever it was just stepped onto the cedar and never stepped off. Lang tells Harris to mark the spot. He doesn't say what I'm thinking, that sometimes it's not the prints you find that matter. It's where they stop. By the time we get back to the grave, more folks have gathered. Word travels fast in East Mill when it's bad news, and this is worse than most. 3 men from the volunteer fire crew stand near the fence, talking low. Mrs. Carter from the diner has her coat pulled tight, staring at the Dorseys like she's afraid to meet their eyes. June hasn't stopped crying. Michael hasn't moved from where we left him. He watches Lang like the sheriff is supposed to pull an answer out of his pocket. "What did you find?" he asks. Lang shakes his head. Trail stops. No signs past the cedar fall. That's impossible. Michael's voice breaks on the word. Nobody corrects him. Out here, plenty of things happen that shouldn't. Lang tells Harris to take statements from anyone who's been by the cemetery in the last week. That's not many people. Most plots here don't get visitors more than once or twice a year, if that. The only fresh flowers are on veterans' graves, and those come from a church group. I step back from the crowd. My work boots sink slightly in the soft earth, the kind that's been dug and packed too many times. I keep my eyes on the open coffin. It looks wrong, too small now that it's empty, like the air inside is heavier than what should be there. A drizzle starts, cold and thin. Drops patter against my jacket and the wood of the coffin. The dirt pile beside it is turning to mud, sliding back toward the hole. Lang tells everyone to clear out. We'll have deputies here tonight. No one comes in without permission. Michael stares at him like he's daring him to keep them out, but June leans into him and they walk back to the truck. She doesn't look at me when they pass, but I can feel the question hanging in the air. What kind of place loses the dead? When the last car pulls away, I'm left with the grave, the rain and the prints that fade a little more each time I glance over. Lang asked if I could stay the night at the cemetery. Said the deputies would be running patrols, but he wanted someone here in case whoever did this came back. I didn't argue. I've spent more nights among graves than I have in my own bed. I set up in the small tool shed near the back fence. It's not much, just enough space for a folding chair, a thermos of coffee, and the smell of oil from the mower. The rain stops around midnight. leaving the air damp and cold. Every sound carries, branches shifting, a lone dog barking 2 streets over, the low hum of a truck on the highway. From where I sit, I can see the open grave through the cracked shed door. Lang didn't want the coffin covered until they'd gone over it again in daylight. It sits there, pale in the moonlight, the empty space inside almost glowing. Around 1 in the morning, headlights sweep the far fence. A deputy's cruiser slows, then keeps going. The crunch of tires on gravel fades, and the quiet swells back in. I pour more coffee, though it's gone lukewarm. I start thinking about the Dorseys, about Kayla. I was the one who lowered her coffin into the ground 4 years ago after a fever that no one could stop. June's hands had trembled when she passed me the little stuffed lamb to place inside. I remember because it felt wrong, lowering something meant for comfort into the cold. A snap comes from the cedar grove, just one. I set the cup down, step out into the chill. The grass is slick under my boots. The trees stand still, but there's a shift in the air like the pause before a storm. I scan the fence line. Nothing moves. Still, my eyes keep pulling back to the gap where the prints began. Even in the dark, I can see it. Open, waiting, like a door someone forgot to close. By dawn, my coffee is gone and my hands ache from the cold. The sky over East Mill turns from black to a thin grey, the kind that makes everything look drained. I walk to the grave, boots sinking into the damp ground. The prints that had been clear yesterday are barely shadows now, washed soft by the rain and the night air. The cedar grove looks different in daylight, less like a wall, more like a path that's been waiting to be taken. Lang arrives with 2 county investigators. They carry cameras and bright orange flags for marking evidence. One of them, a woman named Myers, squats by the coffin. She brushes her glove over the edge of the wood and frowns. Clean break. No gnawing. Not an animal. Michael and June arrive a half-hour later. She stays in the truck again, face pale, hair pulled into a loose knot. Michael walks straight to Lang. You find her? Lang doesn't answer right away. He gestures toward the cedar grove. Trail ends in there. We're expanding the search grid. Michael's voice rises. A grid? That's what you do when someone's lost. She's not lost. She was buried. The words sit heavy. Nobody argues, but nobody has another word to offer. I keep to the edge while they work. The investigators measure, photograph, flag. It feels strange, seeing the place where I spend my days treated like a crime scene. Usually the dead are left in peace. Now it's as if the ground itself is guilty. Myers steps over to me. You dug the original grave? I nod. 4 years ago. Same spot. You notice anything then? Anything unusual? No, just the usual clay and roots. She was small. It went quick. She studies me a moment, like she's weighing whether I'm holding something back. Then she moves on. I stand there staring at the soil under my nails, knowing it's the same soil that used to cover a child, and wondering why it isn't doing that anymore. By afternoon, the investigators pack up, leaving Lang with a stack of forms and a radio clipped to his shoulder. The deputies keep their cruisers moving along the road by the cemetery, slow enough to be seen, fast enough not to seem afraid. I head into town for lunch, though I'm not hungry. The diner's half full, but the conversation is thinner than usual. Folks glance up when I walk in. They all know where I've been. Mrs. Carter pours me coffee without asking. Heard they're looking in the woods, she says, voice low. I nod, and trail stops fast. Too fast. A man at the counter, Eddie from the feed store, leans over. You think somebody dug her up? I think she's not where she's supposed to be. The room goes quiet again. In a place like East Mill, you can go months without talking about certain things. But once you start, it spreads fast. When I finish my coffee, I head back, passing the empty lots where houses used to stand before work dried up. The cemetery gate is still open, the grave still uncovered. Lang's standing by his cruiser, arms crossed. They're done for now, he says. You can fill it in, but don't cover the coffin yet. It's strange standing there with a shovel putting back dirt over nothing. The weight feels wrong, like I'm lying to the ground. Every scoop slides off the lid, leaving a hollow sound where it hits. As I work, I notice something. Just beyond the cedar grove in the far field, the grass is bent in a narrow line. Not crushed flat, just brushed over like something passed lightly through. It's too far to be from the prints, but the angle matches. I stop, leaning on the shovel. The breeze moves the grass back into place and the line is gone. But I know I saw it. When I look back at the open coffin, It feels less like a crime scene and more like an unanswered question. One the ground doesn't want to give up. Lang caught me staring at the far field. "See something?" he asked, walking over. Grass was bent. Just for a second. Like something passed through. He squinted, but the breeze had already erased it. Probably deer. They cut across from the creek sometimes. Not in a straight line like that. Lang didn't answer. He just tapped the side of his cruiser, the metal dull from years of dust and rain. "Tell me something, Hank. You've been here longer than me. You know who comes through this place at night?" Folks visiting graves usually come in daylight. Kids sneak in sometimes, but they leave beer cans, not empty coffins. Lang nodded, but his eyes stayed fixed on the cedar grove. "If this was somebody local, somebody you know, you'd tell me." I didn't like the way he asked it. If I knew who took her, I wouldn't be standing here talking. He studied my face a little too long before changing the subject. "We'll bring dogs tomorrow. Might not get much scent after the rain, but we'll try." When Lang drove off, I walked the fence line alone. The prints were gone now, just damp earth blending into the grass. At the cedar grove, I stopped, looking for anything the investigators might have missed. Bits of fabric, broken twigs, anything out of place. Instead, I found something small wedged under the roots of the fallen cedar, a scrap of ribbon frayed at one end. Blue. I knew it before I touched it. 4 years hadn't faded the color. June had tied it in Kayla's hair the day we lowered her down. I slid it into my pocket before heading back to the shed. Some things you don't hand over right away. Not because you're hiding them, but because you're not ready to see what happens next. The sky was darkening again, heavy with the smell of more rain. I knew tomorrow would wash away even more. That night, the ribbon feels heavier than it should. I keep turning it in my hands, feeling the frayed edge, the faint stiffness from dirt. It smells faintly of cedar, but maybe that's just from where I found it. I tell myself I'll give it to Lang in the morning, but I don't. Instead, I put it in the top drawer of my dresser, next to an old pocket knife and the photo of my father in his work overalls. The wind picks up after midnight. I can hear it in the siding, in the loose metal of the shed out back. Sleep doesn't come easy. Not when I keep seeing that empty coffin in my mind, the wood pale under a grey sky. By sunrise, the rain has started again. I make it back to the cemetery, just as Lang arrives with 2 handlers and a pair of hounds. The dogs sniff around the cedar grove, noses to the ground circling where the prints ended. Then they pull toward the fallen cedar, noses twitching, tails stiff. The handlers exchange looks. "Scent strong here," one says. Then nothing. "Like it just stops?" Lang asks. "Yeah, not even a drift. It's like it was cut." Michael Dorsey shows up just before noon. He keeps his distance from the handlers, but watches every move. When they take the dogs further into the woods and lose the trail entirely, his face goes blank. Lang tries to speak to him, but Michael just turns away, walking to the truck where June waits. She doesn't even open her eyes when he gets in. By afternoon, the handlers are gone and the rain is steady. Lang stands under the hood of his cruiser, writing in a small notebook. I almost tell him about the ribbon. Almost. But his face is hard, the kind that says he's already balancing too many things he can't solve. So I keep it to myself for now, not because I don't trust him, but because the ribbon feels like the only part of her that hasn't been taken. The rain doesn't let up for 2 days. The cemetery turns soft, graves sinking at the corners, puddles collecting on the paths. I spend my hours draining the worst of them, propping up stones that lean too far. Lang comes by less. When he does, his visits are short. No small talk, just clipped updates. No sign in the woods. County's pulling back until we have something new. In East Mill, something new doesn't come often. The Dorseys stop showing up at the cemetery. I figure they've had enough of standing by the hole where their daughter should be. The last time I saw Michael, he didn't wave. Just drove past, eyes fixed on the road. One night I take the ribbon out again. I hold it under the small lamp in my kitchen, tracing the threads with my thumb. I remember the funeral, how June smoothed Kayla's hair before the lid closed, tying that ribbon like it mattered in the place she was going. I think about giving it back to her. But what would that do? It wouldn't answer the questions, wouldn't fill the grave again. It would just be another thing for her to keep in a drawer, pulling out on nights when the house feels too empty. A week after the grave was found open, Lang calls me in. His office smells of stale coffee and paper. "You ever see anyone hanging around here after dark?" he asks. No one I didn't chase off. You know the Dorseys haven't been answering my calls. I know they've been through hell. Lang sighs. Some things stay buried for a reason, Hank. When they don't, it's never good. He's not talking about the dead anymore, but I don't push. I just leave his office with the same knot in my gut I've had since that morning in the graveyard. That night I dream of the cedar grove. Only this time the prints don't stop. It's just after 5 a.m. when the phone rings. In East Mill, that hour means one of two things, bad news or a wrong number. This one's the first. Hank, it's Michael. His voice is low, frayed at the edges. You need to come out here. I grab my coat, don't bother asking why. His farm is on the south edge of town, 20 minutes on empty roads. The sky's still black when I pull in. His truck's out front, door hanging open, June on the porch with her robe pulled tight. Michael meets me halfway to the house. It's in the barn, he says. The air inside smells of hay and oil. My boots scuff against the concrete as we walk to the far stall. There in the corner is a small pile. Dirt, roots, and something pale caught in the mix. It's a scrap of coffin lining. The same kind I saw when I opened Kayla's grave. Found it when I went to feed the horses, Michael says. The door was closed when I came out here. No sign of how it got in. June's voice carries from the porch. Tell him about the noise. Michael rubs his face. Middle of the night I heard steps in the yard. Slow. Thought it was the wind at first, then the dog started barking. By the time I got outside, nothing was there. Just the barn door swinging. I kneel by the pile. The dirt's damp but not muddy, like it came from under the surface. I don't touch the lining. My hands are already cold, and something about it makes me feel colder. You call Lang? I ask. Michael shakes his head. I'm calling you first. I don't want this turning into another search that ends in nothing. Outside, the wind moves through the bare trees, and for a moment it sounds like footsteps on grass. By mid-morning, we're standing at the edge of the cedar grove again. Michael insisted on coming with me, the scrap of coffin lining wrapped in a plastic bag in his jacket pocket. The ground is still soft from the week's rain. We move slow, scanning for anything out of place. The grove feels different now, not just quiet but expectant, like it's waiting for us to make the first wrong step. We follow the same line as before, past the sagging fence to the fallen cedar where the prints had ended. Michael stops, crouches by the root ball. Look, he says, the ribbon I'd found days ago is gone. The spot where it had been wedged is empty, the dirt disturbed. You take it, he asks. I shake my head. Not since the day I found it. He stares at me a moment, then turns his eyes back to the ground. There are fresh impressions here. Not full prints, but shallow marks, like something pressed into the earth without full weight. We move beyond the fallen tree. The grove thins here, the canopy breaking just enough for the light to seep in. That's when I see it. A narrow channel through the undergrowth, no more than a foot wide, leading deeper. It's not a deer trail. Too straight, too clean. Michael looks at me, waiting for me to say something. I don't. I just follow it, branches scraping my sleeves, the smell of damp cedar thick in the air. After 50 yards, the channel ends in a small clearing ringed with young pines. In the center is a mound of turned soil, fresh enough to glisten in the dim light. Michael takes a step toward it, but I stop him. We should get Lang. He doesn't move back. And if this time he tells us to wait again. The air between us feels heavy, full of the question neither of us wants to answer. We stand there, both staring at the mound. The soil is loose, darker than the ground around it. No grass, no roots holding it down. Whoever put it here didn't bother to hide it well. Michael kneels and brushes the top with his hand. Still damp, he says. I crouch beside him, running my fingers over the edge. It's not wide, maybe 3 feet long, 2 across. Small enough to make my stomach tighten. We dig, we might ruin evidence, I say. He looks at me, jaw clenched. Or we might stop wondering. We use our hands at first, pulling away chunks of soil. After a few minutes, Michael grabs a fallen branch and starts prying deeper. The smell comes up quick, earth mixed with something stale, faint but unmistakable. I tell him to slow down. He doesn't. Then the branch strikes something solid, white, curved. I freeze, my pulse thudding in my ears. Michael scrapes more away until the shape is clear, wood splintered pale under the dirt. It's a piece of coffin lid, the grain and paint matching the one I'd opened at the cemetery. But there's nothing inside it, just more soil beneath. Michael sits back hard, breathing fast. Why take her just to bury pieces of the box? I don't answer. My eyes are on the edge of the clearing. The ground there has faint marks, as if something heavy was dragged across it. They vanish into the trees, swallowed by shadows. We're calling Lang, I say. Michael doesn't argue this time. He stands brushing dirt from his hands. As we turn to leave, the wind shifts, carrying the smell of damp wood and something else. Faint, sour, like flowers left too long in water. I don't look back at the mound. I already know it won't be the last one we find. Lang arrived in less than 20 minutes, his cruiser throwing light across the grove. Harris was with him, along with 2 county men carrying evidence kits. They didn't say much, just marked the mound, photographed it, bagged the coffin piece. Michael stood off to the side, arms crossed, watching every move. His face didn't change, even when Lang told him they'd have to take the soil for testing. When the work was done, Lang came over to me. You said you didn't move anything from here before we got here? Not from here, I said. My hand went to my coat pocket before I could stop it. The ribbon was still at home in the drawer. Lang studied me, like he was waiting for me to hand him something. When I didn't, he just nodded. We'll keep looking. Back at the cemetery, the open grave had been filled in. The grass was patched, though the ground still sagged where the earth hadn't settled. From a distance, it could have been any other plot. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with the ribbon in front of me. I thought about giving it to June, about telling her where I'd found it. But then I pictured her face, the way her eyes had stayed closed in the truck, as if seeing less might hurt less. Some things you keep, not because they belong to you, but because they're all that's left. The next morning I went back to work, trimming grass around headstones, patching the sunken ground, fixing the gate where the chain link sagged. People die, people are buried. That's the way it's supposed to be. But sometimes the ground doesn't keep its promises. And when it doesn't, you're left with nothing but questions. And the weight of knowing the answers might be worse than the not knowing. I slid the ribbon back into the drawer and closed it. For now it would stay there,